Shabbat Shalom. Thanks for joining me this morning for Soup for the Soul and Stories for the Spirit. A little bit of everything, something for everyone, as they say. Today we're going to make a soup that has more of a Sephardic slant. It's a lentil soup. Lentils have a rich history in Jewish stories, right from the Bible when we read about Jacob Esau selling his birthright to Jacob for a bowl of lentils. So those must have been really excellent lentils, and we're going to try and replicate those delicious lentils here today. The flavoring of these lentils is curry and coconut and lime, and it really is delicious. I've made it several times and really enjoy it. And I hope you'll try it too at home. It's really easy and fun, and it's just like one of those more hearty soups. Our ingredients for today are right here. We've got, of course, the star of the show. We've got lentils, and we've got onions that are so delicious in combination with lots of different spices. So today for our spices, we've got some curry powder. I like the Pereg brand. And we've got some ginger and garlic paste. It's just crushed up ginger and garlic. And coconut oil. I actually don't have fresh lime today, so I'm substituting this. It's better if you have fresh, but this is what I've got. And diced tomatoes. I think I'm going to use a low sodium bouillon today, but you could use just water if you want to, or a Tetra Pak of broth. And that's it. Pretty simple, but delicious. So far in the pot, we have coconut oil and curry, garlic and ginger and onions, and it smells incredible. I wish you could smell it. It smells so good. That garlic is really coming through. And garlic is one of the foods that the Israelites complained that they missed when they were in the desert and all they could have was manna. And they complained bitterly that they missed the food in Egypt, and one of the foods that they mentioned is garlic. And maybe that's why in the Mishnah, the rabbis talk about the Jewish people as people who love garlic, as garlic eaters, in a good way. The garlic is such a wonderful flavor, it's such a great thing. And in fact, in the Talmud, it says that the Jewish people eat their favorite food on their favorite day, meaning they have garlic on Shabbat, which is actually what we are doing today. So we're well in line with Jewish tradition in making this amazing lentil soup with garlic. Put some lime in to kind of give it a really fresh, tangy flavor. I like a lot of lime actually, so I put a couple of spoonfuls in. But you can kind of do it to taste. And I'm going to show you what it looks like. While our soup is simmering, it's time for a story. And this story comes from Morocco, and it's about lentils. So this bachelor found a penny in his coat pocket, and he thought, what can I do with a penny? This was a while back, so a penny could still buy something. And he went to the market, and indeed he found some lentils. These were already cooked lentils that he could snack on. And so he started to snack on them, and they were delicious. And he ate them, savoring each and every one. And really, like they were precious, like they were caviar or something really expensive. And when he got to the last one, it fell out of his hands down a grate. And he was so sad. And then he heard some noise down at the bottom underneath the grate. And he says, "Hello down there. Do you see a lentil?" Can you imagine? That has fallen. That is my lentil, my last one, and it's really important that I get it back. So he hears a voice call from down there saying, "I have your lentil, but I would like to keep it." And the man said, "No, please don't. I bought it with the one penny that I had, and I really want that last lentil." So he hears the voice call up, "I will trade you for it. I will give you for your lentil a magic pot." So the man figured he had nothing to lose and said, "Okay, I'll make that trade." So up comes a sprite, a magical creature, and he's holding a pot, and he gives it to the man. He says, this pot will make any food that you want. Take it home and don't let anyone else see it, or the magic will be gone. So the man was sort of thinking, not sure what to believe, but he took it home. He decided to give it a try. He closed his eyes, he concentrated, and he thought, I would just like to have some nice, like a nice chicken for Shabbat. It's Shabbat tonight, and I would like a nice chicken with all the fixings. I want potatoes, I want matzo ball soup, I want all of it. So he imagined it, and what do you know? It appeared in the pot. In some magical way, he was able to have both soup and chicken. And it appeared in the pot, and he enjoyed it so much, and he decided to have a party the next day. So he didn't have a whole lot of friends, but he went out and invited some of the townspeople that he knew and some of them that he didn't know so well, including this lovely young woman who he had chatted with several times as she worked in the market, and had always admired how kind she was and how intelligent she seemed with the interactions. So he invited them all over, and he went into his kitchen, and secretly he decided it was the moment to go into the kitchen and secretly make the food. So while his guests were in the main room, he went into his tiny kitchen and secretly asked the pot for the food that he wanted. And magically it appeared. But when he turned around, he saw that the young woman had been watching him and saw it happen. And she said, what is that? What happened? There was no food, and suddenly there's a feast. And he said, oh, please don't tell anyone. It's a magic pot. And she laughed. A magic pot? That's silly. She pretended that she didn't believe him. But later on that night, when he was in deep sleep, she snuck into his home, and she traded the magic pot with one of her own pots that looked identical to it. And she went home and had the magic pot for herself. So the next day, the man went to go make food in the magic pot, and it didn't work. And he was so upset that he went back to the spot where the grate was, where he could talk to the magic sprite, and he said, oh sprite, the magic pot doesn't work. You've tricked me. I want my lentil back. And the magic sprite said, what? Of course it works. And he went with him to his home and looked at the pot and said, this is not the pot that I have given you. Somebody has taken this pot. But what you don't know is that will bring you great luck. The man thought, this is very strange, and he was about to, get annoyed and ask for his lentil again, but he figured it wasn't worth it. He already had some food from the pot. He'll just leave it alone. But in the meantime, he said, please tell me who has taken my pot. And the sprite said, if you search back at the market where you first bought the lentils, you will find the person who has taken your pot and taken your heart. And so the man went back to the market and knew just who to look for. He found the young woman, and she looked a little shy when she saw him, because she knew that he must have realized that she had taken it. And he came over and he said, did you take my magic pot? And she said, I may have. That depends why you ask. And he said, I'm asking because I'd like to share it with you. And if you've taken it, why don't you let me know and we'll share it together. Well, she admitted to taking it, and the rest was history. They shared many beautiful meals together, and they always had lentils. And that's the end of the story. So, plot twist there. It's how food brought these two people together, and how finding one thing led to finding something else, and just being open to what's in front of them and to what they don't expect might lead to much, and yet it led to a life of love and good food and happiness. There are lots of other stories like that. Jewish folktales, there's some in the Ashkenazic tradition too. That's a Sephardic one. And I thought I'd tell it because of course lentils, and because the dish we're making today is one that you would find, in Indian culture, and we could imagine that lots of Sephardic Jews would be used to these kind of flavors and brought these flavors into the homes of many. There's a long history of these kinds of stories where food magically appears where there is none in some kind of vessel or pot. We see a story similar to this in that way in the Tanakh, in the story in which the prophet Elisha comes across a widow and her 2 sons who are in a desperate situation. The widow has recently lost her husband, and he has left them with debt, and she doesn't have any way of making money, paying off the debt, let alone supporting her family. So Elisha says to her, "What can I do for you? What do you have in your house?" And the widow says, "All I have is a jug of oil." And Elisha says, "That's fine. Go to all of your neighbors and ask them for empty pots, vessels, jugs. Ask them and bring them all back here." And so she does as he asked. And he tells her to then in secret to go, not let anyone else see. And just as we saw with the story with the sprite and the bachelor, it's in secret. And she goes and hides herself from her sons. And he says to pour the 1 jug of oil she has into these other vessels. And sure enough, the oil somehow magically keeps going until she fills many, many vessels. And Elisha tells her to go and sell all of these vessels full of oil, and to pay off her debts and keep the rest of the money to help pay for their lives, for their needs, their food, their everyday the everyday necessities that they need to buy and pay for. So this is an old kind of story a paradigm that we see take shape in lots of different ways. And I guess the message here is that sometimes we don't realize it when there's more there than that meets the eye, when we can make more out of things than we initially think. It kind of reminds me in a different way of the story of Hagar in the desert, when Hagar is cast out from her family because of Sarah's jealousy, and Hagar brings her baby son into the desert, and she's scared and she starts to cry. And, it's very dangerous for a woman alone, let alone a woman with a small child, to be wandering alone in the desert in biblical times. And she starts to cry, and she thinks, I'm going to die, and my son is going to die. And an angel of God hears her cry and tells her to lift her eyes and look. And she sees right beside her is water, is a source of water. And the question I've always had is, was the water always there? And she just didn't see it. She just didn't notice it because she was too bereft, too overwhelmed to see the source of support right in front of her. It's different than the story about the magic food or the magic oil appearing, but there's something similar about both, in that sometimes when we think there's nothing left, when we think that we're out of our source of support, that there in fact is more, and we have to just hang on and have faith.
Let's see how the soup is. It's ready now. It looks delicious. It smells amazing. It just has to taste good. Let's see. Okay, a little taste. Get a spoon. Okay. So let's see if you can see the soup. Just a little taste. I'm saving it for the family. It's delicious. I hope yours is really good too. And I hope that our time this morning helped to remind you that sometimes there's more there than we realize, and that when we're feeling like it's not quite enough, that sometimes sources of support and sources of plenty are right there. We just need to open our eyes and find it. Shabbat Shalom.